Every time I see Caroline, she always smiles a lot and looks very optimistic about life. You can probably tell her personality from this interview as well. After graduating with a fine art degree from USC, Caroline continued to take art lessons to improve her portfolio. That was when she discovered the fun of plein-air painting and, of course, warrior painters. After working in the game industry for a bit, she successfully transitioned into animation. In this podcast, Caroline shares her art journey with us, including how she constantly hunts for portfolio review and critique opportunities to improve her art. This is Kaylee, your host for today's No Play No Game interview.
Hi, my name is Caroline Chiou. I'm a background designer at Titmouse Animation. I went to USC and majored in fine art, but I think most of what I've learned and what helped me get into animation was from CDA and schoolism and stuff like that. I was actually mostly trying to get into the video game industry. USC was kind of a good school for that. I ended up kind of taking a lot of classes in the film school major or the game design school and stuff like that, since you had the flexibility to take a bunch of electives.
Then how did you get into animation?
Well, what happened was I was working in games for a bit, but I wasn't really happy in it. And I had a lot of friends in animation who they were getting paid more fairly because there was a union. They were working on cool stuff, and they also just seemed more relaxed about life. All my friends in games were they always seemed perpetually stressed out, either by working a lot of hours or not making enough money. But yeah, animation just seemed really nice, and I've kind of always been a weeb, and I watched lots of animation growing up, and I've kind of figured it's well, they're pretty similar, and I do like both, so I'm gonna try to make the pivot.
So how long did you work in games before switching to animation?
Almost 2 years, I guess, but I think about at least the studio that I was at, because I think I was interning there, and I was hoping that they'd convert me, but after about 6 months or so, I was I think they're stringing me along, and so I'm gonna just start working on my animation style portfolio, because right now my portfolio is game oriented. I need to make a new portfolio to work in animation.
Was that when you took classes from Brainstorm, CDA?
Yeah, I was taking classes before even working in games, because before I worked in games, I was working at stewarding books. So obviously it's I don't want to be stuck in a retail job forever. So I was taking classes at CDA then, just while working.
What did you do in video games? Was it similar, like Vista,
Yeah.
design stuff?
Yeah, I was designing props and costumes and weapons for the characters in our games. And then the game that I was working on was kind of one of those spin-off games that's based off of the animation property type thing. I kind of figured oh, the style is animation style anyway. And so I figured I could sort of use that experience working on that type of game to sort of jump to animation.
That's smart.
Yeah.
So you were basically doing prop design, and then now you do the background design.
Yeah, basically.
Have you been working in Titmouse the whole time, or did you?
No, I worked at Shadow Machine for the last few months, because that was basically when I basically just broke into animation. And then I guess right now at this very moment, I'm actually between jobs, and I start at Titmouse in a week. But I figured, by the time this aired, I'll probably have started at Titmouse already.
So you haven't started your project with Titmouse yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I'm really excited for it, though. It's kind of a dream project for me.
That's awesome. Can't wait to know more about it, but I guess you can't talk about it right now.
Yeah, not really.
All right. So how did you get into art? I know you went to USC for fine art, but did you always wanted to do art?
Yeah, in some shape or form. I was really lucky that my parents were pretty supportive of me just doing art. When I was little, I was always taking art classes and stuff like that. except I didn't really take it super seriously or as seriously as I should have. I feel that if like I took it more seriously in like high school or even college, that like I'd be in a really different place right now. But yeah, well, what happens happens.
So you were
Hmm?
just drawing and painting
Yeah.
when you were little, and but how did you like? Why did you go into fine art? What did you think fine art was?
Mm, they had like a drawing and painting concentration there. And so I kind of thought that they'd be a little bit more illustrative because I think on their website they were saying that they had like people go into illustration and I was like, oh well, like illustration's like pretty similar, you know, the basic like principles are kind of the same. It didn't really end up being that way, unfortunately, because yeah, it ended up being really fine artsy, more than I could have anticipated. A lot of abstract stuff, like contemporary abstract stuff.
Yeah, I heard from other people as well. When you go into fine art program, it's like a lot of theories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of assumed it'd be more classical, you know, they teach you like the fundamentals of like figure drawing and like there'd be more focus on like the classic Renaissance atelier type thing.
And then when did you know you wanted to get into entertainment art?
I kind of wanted to get into that the whole time, at least at a school like USC. The game design program they had there, it's not super conducive towards like learning how to like make art for games. That program's like for designing games and like programming games, and then animations for like literally animating stuff. So I figured, okay, I'd go to Roski and like learn how to draw, and then I can like try to apply that towards like the other majors or the classes in the different majors at USC.
Mhm, mhm. So did you think the classes there prepared you to build a good portfolio right after you graduated?
No, no. Definitely not for like what I was going for. There's like definitely some like really good artists that come out of USC, and there's like really good storyboard artists too that have like come out of USC. But I think a lot of it was just it wasn't like, oh, the school like made them that way. They were already really good when they went in.
Right, right. Did you have any plein air painting, landscape painting class at USC?
No. See, like it was yeah, it really wasn't what I expected.
But you started to going out and doing plein air with us. Like how did
Yeah.
you get started?
I think it was like a friend of mine shared like the Warrior Painters Facebook group with me. I was kind of lurking on the page for a while. And then I think like it was like around New Year's ish, but I kind of was just like, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go and like suck it up, I guess. Cause I kept seeing all these like people making really cool stuff. And I was like really nervous about joining. And but yeah, eventually I was like, okay, yeah, I'll just go.
But did you go out to paint before you joined our group?
No, I didn't.
Really?
No, I mean, I've done it a couple times for like like classes. Like
Uh-huh.
we'd have a painting class and then there'd be one or two sessions that were outside, but I wasn't like consistently doing it until I joined Warrior Painters.
Mm. And the classes were at like CDA or Brainstorm?
No, USC. I don't think I started going to Warrior Painters until like after I graduated from USC.
How did you first hear about plein air painting, this phrase?
I'm sure there was like some art class I took in high school where they were like plein air paintings when you go outside and paint from life, and it's very natural and spontaneous, and it looks better than copying from a photo.
Do you think so after you painted a lot later on?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it looks nicer than a photo for sure. Yeah, there's nothing like real life.
But how often do you paint right now?
Not as often as I should. I did it more like when I was unemployed. After I started working, I kind of dropped the habit a bit, but yeah, I'm gonna like try to start it back up again.
Do you usually do traditional painting for your personal project, or do you also do digital?
I mostly do digital for my
Mhm.
personal projects. And I guess like even like the plein air stuff that I've been doing, I did participate in plein air brawl, and that was mostly digital too.
But I remember when we were going out every weekend, you were painting traditional
Yeah, I
for a long
was.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was. I was doing gouache.
Mm, mm. Would you say gouache is your favorite traditional medium?
I like gouache, but I think in terms of like what I probably like oils more. If it weren't for like the cleanup that oils required, I think I actually like oils more than gouache. You can like really nitpick at it, although it takes a long time to dry. But it's kind of nice that like you can kind of have more time to work with the paint before it dries compared to gouache, where it's like after it dries, and then if you try like painting more, it kind of gets really streaky.
Have you had time to do oil paintings then after you
No.
graduated?
I actually did some oil paintings, because I took some painting classes with Dan Cooper at CDA. All my homework for that class was oil painting. Yeah, it was really fun.
Oh, so it sounds like you took a lot of painting classes on purpose so you could practice.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm better at I feel like I'm a better draftsman than a painter. So like painting something that I feel like I have to try really hard on in order to like to get it up to the same level.
So you said you don't have that much time to do your personal project after you got a
Yeah,
job. When you had time, what was your art schedule like?
when I had time, what I kind of did was I pretty much didn't have like time on the weekdays. I would always schedule like one day a week on the weekend where I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna do art like all day. And I'd basically spend all day on it and do nothing else with that. I felt like that was kind of the only way to really get like a balance between working full time, but also like not killing yourself trying to do personal work out on top of your full-time work.
Right, right. So this schedule, you continue to keep it, like even when you get a full-time job, right? You still
Yeah,
spend
that's
time.
definitely my goal.
Hmm.
It was a little tricky the last month or so just because I was doing freelance work on top of my full-time work. So I really didn't have time for anything.
Then what about when you didn't have a full-time job, you only had some freelance? Do you try to
Oh,
do art every day?
yeah, in that case, yeah, I would try to do art like every single day, at least a few hours for sure.
And mostly
And
digital, you mean?
yeah, because and if I were only doing freelance, it's because I was like trying to find a job. So I'd end up doing digital to help with that. I guess I would also try to take a class too, like an online class
Hmm.
as well, seeing
You
as I
mentioned
had
schoolism?
yeah, schoolism's like really awesome. I backed their Kickstarter back when they had it, and so they've kind of grandfathered me in on that like old Kickstarter rate. So I'm basically never gonna unsubscribe from them ever. Their
Really?
classes are
How much is
hmm?
it? How much?
I pay $10 a month for their self-teaching auditing thing.
I guess it's half of the price right now, right?
I think it's gone up to like 30. I mean, 30 a month is still actually like a really good price for their self-teaching
Oh.
thing.
And since you have taken so many classes, what are some of your favorite instructors?
I really like Dan Cooper, who teaches color and light at CDA. He's super nice. He's super positive. I kind of went in not knowing anything about like how value worked, and he like made something click, and all of a sudden it like made a lot more sense. And I think my painting started getting a lot better because of that class. And I like Angela's class, the background design class. And then I also like King Lee's background design class at CDA and Dice Sutsumi and Robert Kondo's color and light class on schoolism. I think you can audit it. And then they also have a lot of really cool tutorials on their YouTube channel as well. I watch those a lot too.
What about from USC? Who were your favorite instructors, if there were any?
No, there definitely were. No, I don't want to make it sound like it was a total waste of time or anything. I definitely had some. I'm just trying to remember. There was this right, his name was Keith Mayerson, I think. He was like my painting teacher, one of my painting teachers at USC and Roski, and he was like really nice because Roski kind of had this thing against like people who wanted to go into like animation or comics or whatever. You know, they're all like, "Oh, it's commercial," and all that. But he wasn't like that at all. He was like really, really open to animation, and because he liked that stuff too. He was really cool. He was like a breath of fresh air. I had some other good teachers there too.
If you don't remember the names, maybe what type of classes that have helped you?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I also took a storyboarding class at USC once. I kind of lucked into that one, I think. That was really cool. It was in the animation department. And then, oh, yeah, there was another class in the architecture school called the Architect Sketchbook. That was really fun. It was basically like going out and sketching buildings with like pen and ink. Yeah, those people were really old school, but I learned a lot about like perspective and just like being comfortable with drawing buildings from that class. Yeah, I think that's all I can come up with for now.
So it sounds like your art journey is mostly concentrated on just drawing and painting landscapes, right? And the classes you like are also about landscape painting or just color and light, just like about environments.
Yeah, that's kind of mostly what I've been focusing on. Like I've taken like figure drawing classes and stuff too, but I think environments ended up being a better fit for me.
How do you think plein-air painting helps you with your animation career?
I would say it helps with like it forces me to work quickly because you don't have forever to muddle on something. Otherwise, the lighting changes or something flies into your paint or whatever. It's also kind of helped me with like simplifying shapes. I would say it helped with like simplifying like complex shapes into simple shapes. And you're sort of learning to design the environments and the compositions to suit your painting. And you're not necessarily copying exactly what you see. You're sort of designing it to make it look more interesting. And that's something that you kind of have to do at work too.
Right. And what else do you think plein-air painting has helped you in your life, if
In my
anything?
life,
Uh-huh.
I've gotten to go to a lot of cool places that I don't normally go to, and then it was cool meeting like or being friends with the warrior painters and stuff, and like hanging out with them. I think even at USC, like most of my friends were like STEM people, so I actually wasn't friends with like that many artists there, and so it was nice to have like a group of like artist friends, basically.
So you met more artists or entertainment artists through the group.
Yeah, or actually just artists in general, because my friends at USC were mostly STEM majors, like engineers and like science, and I guess there's game design too. But that was like most of my friend group.
And how do you keep yourself motivated to do art?
Uh, I wouldn't necessarily. I don't necessarily like keep myself motivated. It's kind of like more like, oh, you just have to do it type of thing.
Okay,
Like,
that's one form of motivations too. It's just like pressure yourself.
well, yeah, I guess it's I feel like it's less about like motivation, more about like discipline, right? Like you're not always going to feel inspired to draw something, and I don't feel like you should necessarily wait until you're inspired to draw or paint something. You're kind of it's more like, oh, if you want to do a certain thing, like if you want to work in animation or if you want to work on a at a specific studio, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna get like this many pieces done in a week or month or whatever, and then you just have to do it and commit to it. Um, I guess I like listening to podcasts to make me feel better, and then I also watch and read manga and anime that, especially like the sports kind, because you kind of see like these people. It's all about like people trying really, really hard to reach a certain goal and then like them finally succeeding after going through a lot of obstacles and stuff. And so that kind of helps me too, like to get
Hmm.
into that mindset. But in general, it's just you have to be disciplined.
Do you think you're very disciplined right now?
Nah. I feel like I set my goals a little bit too high or something.
What is your goal?
Um, like I'm like, oh, I want to get like this many pieces done in a month or a week, and I feel like I always end up setting the bar like slightly too high. I guess it's like I'm always like sort of challenging or pushing myself that way. A lot of the times I'll be like, oh, I'm just gonna do this because I think it'll be cool and I'm gonna like finish it by like this time or whatever. Then I'm not thinking about like how hard it would be to do it until I'm actually doing it. And then I realize like, oh no.
Right,
But
right.
I make myself finish it because it's sort of like, oh, well, said that I was going to do it. So even if it takes me longer than I thought it would because I didn't fully think it through, I'm still going to finish it.
You're just gonna sleep less, I guess.
Yeah, or something.
And how do you see your art growth right now? Like, do you have any areas you're working on right now that you want to see potential growth in certain amount of time? How do you set your art goals? And what are you working on right now?
I guess what I like to get my portfolio reviewed a lot, and I kind of use that, like portfolio reviews from like artists that I look up to like sort of set my goals or direction on like what I should focus on next. I got a portfolio review from Helen Chen through like Rise Up Animation once. So like she was telling me that I needed to focus more on like my composition and like storytelling through color. So that's what I'm going to work on next once I get my schedule sort of settled in or something.
How do you get portfolio reviews? Do you actively go online, see who offers them, or how do you find those opportunities?
I've gotten a few of them through like Twitter and stuff because like some people will be like, "Oh, DM me if you want a portfolio review." Like some people will post that, and so I've gotten portfolio reviews through there. A lot of it's like from former teachers of mine too. I'll email them and I'll ask them like, "Oh, I'm looking for work right now," or like, "Do you have time for like a quick call and like to look over my stuff?" So I like keep in touch with my past teachers. Yeah, I guess it's just like a lot of keeping in touch with people, honestly, because after they review your portfolio once, then you can email them a couple months later with the changes that you made and like any new stuff you've added and be like, "Hey, I applied the changes you asked me to make. I was wondering if I can get your opinion on this," that type of thing.
Okay, okay. And you don't feel bad bothering them? I know some people would feel really bad.
I would only feel bad if you message them but don't have anything worthwhile to show them
That's true.
or tell
Yeah.
them. Because, like, I would think that it'd be annoying if they told you to make some change and you email them later and you haven't made the changes that they told you to make.
Have you reached out directly to artists you look up to and ask to see if they can review your portfolio and they rejected you? Has that
Oh no,
happened
I've
yet?
never done that. No, I've never
Oh,
like cold emailed people asking for
okay.
portfolio reviews. I've never done that.
Okay, okay.
I've only like messaged people who said they were open to doing it or something.
Yeah, that's probably why you don't feel bad either, because they offered.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, if they're a former teacher of mine, I don't feel super bad messaging them either, but I wouldn't feel comfortable emailing a stranger.
Yeah, yeah. But what you mentioned is all about portfolio review and improve on your portfolio. But what about just other artwork? Like, for example, what about your plein-air paintings? How do you improve on that? What are your goals for that?
Can my goal be to paint like Angela or something?
Yeah, you can.
I don't know. Planner is like so tricky. I feel like you just have to keep doing it or something, and then it'll work out maybe. Because portfolio is like you have a specific goal or a specific thing you're trying to communicate. But for plein air, you're kind of just painting what you see, and maybe there's like certain ways of designing the space or like exaggerating certain parts, like with color or with values and all that. But
Mhm.
there isn't really a concrete goal at the end of it. It's just like making what you think looks nice.
Right, right. So you're happy with your paintings so far?
I feel like I'm never happy with my paintings. Yeah, I always feel like I can get better. So
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, I don't think I'll ever be completely satisfied, but I think that's what most people are probably gonna be like, right? There's always
Yeah.
like another goal to go after, or you find some new artist that you like, and you're like, oh, I want to try painting like them.
Speaking of which, who are your favorite artists if we talk
Like,
about plein air painters?
I like Angela. I also like Squash. I think his name's like Mike Hernandez or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like his stuff a lot. And then I don't think Sky Satsumi and Robert Kondo post a lot of their plein-air stuff, but I know they do a lot of still life and everything, and like in their classes they talk about how at Tonko House they would do a still life painting every day. So I like their color and light sensibility a lot as well. I like Tommy Kim's stuff. I love his colors too.
What about just artists in general, like your art idols?
Akihiko Yoshida, who does Final Fantasy. That's a character artist though. I should think of. Oh, I like Teo Prinz. He's an environment concept artist at ArenaNet. And then I also like Helen Chen. I like Helen Chen and these other Chen sisters that aren't related to Helen Chen. I like Aaliyah Chen and Felicia Chen. Their stuff's like so freaking good. Rob Rupel is good too. Oh, and I really like Irie Pan stuff too.
Yeah, I think I forgot to ask you, how long have you been working in animation?
Like 3 months.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like very green. I'm very new.
Okay, that makes sense now, because you were talking about portfolio reviews and stuff, because you were trying to get a job in animation.
I'm like still in that mindset of like, I have to find a job or whatever.
That makes sense. What do you like the most about the group?
Well, everyone's like really, really nice, and like they're all like really positive about your art and stuff. It's like more than you would be, you know, because you just like see the problems in your work, but then there's always people who are like, oh, I like this or I like that, and you're like, oh, thanks, because like, yeah, I didn't notice it until you pointed it out. And I also like going out to eat afterwards too.
What are some tips you could offer to people who want to start plein-air painting?
Just gotta start doing it. I don't know what else to say, because like I tend to like think that probably one of the best ways to get into something or to learn something is just like jump right into it and like figure it out along the way.
Like Nike, just do it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like Nike, just do it. Because I mentioned before about how I tend to like try to do like really, really complicated things without fully thinking it through. But I end up learning so much that way, because you're just like, oh, I want to try to make something really, really cool. While you're doing it, you kind of learn all the steps that it takes or how much work it would be. But then the next time you try to do it, you're like, okay, I now know a more efficient way of replicating the same result. And so I kind of think plein-air would be like the same way. Like you just gotta buy some paints and just try it, and then yeah.
And find a group of friends who really encourage you.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's really helpful to have a group of friends who can encourage you, but also like critique your work as well. So it's like because you sometimes get stuck in this rut where like you're not where you want to be, but you don't know why. That's why I always get like a lot of portfolio reviews or critiques from people. It's because they can see things that I can't.
But it also means like you are very friendly and people want to help you, right?
I guess. I'm very thankful for the people in my life.
Yeah, that's another tip. Be a nice person and make friends. And maybe one last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I don't know. I'm just trying to figure things out. It'd be nice to work in feature animation, but I would also hope that like 5 years later, feature animation would have like more diverse subject matter, like catered towards more diverse audiences. Because I think a lot of times right now it's more for kids or the entire family. I would like to see like more adult-oriented feature animation, and so I would like to work on those types of films maybe. It's just because I like anime. So then like there's a lot of fighting and blood and dying and stuff, and everything's like very emotional and raw. But you don't really see that much in American animation. So that's kind of like what I'm looking for. I guess like animation that would make me like cry or scream and like whoo.
Like those Japanese old school animations.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Caroline.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for listening. We love hearing from you. Feel free to write us a review on Apple Podcast or other platforms, leave us a comment on YouTube, or just message us on Instagram. If you want to support us, please consider donating on Gumroad. You'll find a link in the description. Alright, see you again soon!